Hello and welcome, it's Chris from Christopher Holt Training, and welcome to this week's tutorial where we're going to look at the real function of the abdominals. Now this has come from my How to Build Core Strength and Stability ebook, so if you want to find out more information like this, please go to the link that you can see below and it's in the description, and you can download the How to Build Core Strength and Stability ebook. Now we are talking about the real function of the abdominals because as we have been educated, or certainly in the media and possibly by other professionals, is that the core is there to function in a certain way, and so we choose certain exercises to fulfill that function. Hopefully, as we work through this tutorial, you'll start to realize that it's not necessarily built for that, it's built for something else, which is what we're going to discuss. I haven't mentioned it so far because it will all come up on the screen in a second. But before we get into that, just want to quickly mention, you can see up in the top right hand corner of the screen my social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. It'd be great to have you on board, so please do come along, like, follow, subscribe. Alternatively, you can come to the link below, as I've mentioned, and or it's in the description, and you can download the ebook where you'll be able to get more content like this, and you'll find out more about how the core really works. This is just about the abdominals. In the ebook, I talk more about how the core works, and then I give you the exercises in order to fulfill that that structure and that function of the core. So, without further ado, let's get started. We have the abdominal wall. So we've got the rectus abdominis that you can see in that image there as the six-pack that sort of goes down the center of your core. Obviously, you've got the two sections at the bottom, which could then be described as an eight-pack, but the parts of the structure that we really want to be focusing on are the white lines in between each section of muscles, because that's going to become important in a second. But before we get into that, I just quickly want to mention we've got the rectus abdominis, which is one muscle. This is a part of a larger structure called the abdominal wall, and then the abdominal wall is again one structure in sort of as one part of your whole core. So we are still talking about the parts, but in the ebook, I talk more about that whole structure, but this is just sort of building towards that. So the abdominal wall is made up of three layers, or three layers of muscle, and that is at the bottom, or the deepest layer, transverse abdominis. On top of that, internal obliques, and on top of that is external obliques. And then you can see in the middle, you've got rectus abdominis. So to see that a little bit more clearly, you can look at the picture below the text, and you'll see the three layers, and it's all held together via these fascial structures. And that's what these white lines are in between each section of the muscle, or each section of the six-pack. Now, these sort of sections are important because of hoop stresses. Because hoop stresses, you would have heard of intra-abdominal pressure before. So intra-abdominal pressure is pushing out against your abdominal wall. Now, these muscles need to be strong enough to be able to cope with that pressure being pushed out. So the muscles need to hold tight to withstand the internal pressure that's trying to push it out. Now, what's important is these lines of fascia that sort of weave in between the muscles. So as you can see, the six-pack, if they weren't there, your muscles wouldn't be able to hold all of that together. So it's the fascia and in a sense, those lines in between each section of your rectus abdominis that is able to hold that muscle together and not sort of burst apart under hoop stresses. So when we're talking about lifting weights and lifting heavy weights, the intra-abdominal pressure increases. This then increases the hoop stresses on the abdominal wall. So what we have to do is, now that we understand the structure of the abdominal wall, we can now start to understand its function. Because what it's trying to do is it wants to hold in one rigid unit, using these different sections of the abdominals to be able to hold that structure in place whilst we lift heavy objects, be it a weight in the gym, or be it a brick or a stone out in the garden that we need to move, or whatever it might be. Our abdominals want to hold tight and rigid against any movement, if you will. So to summarize, our core or our abdominals are there to hold your torso rigid under a load. It's not there to crunch, twist, or bend. So we can now start to see and understand that the purpose of the abdominals is just one part in a bigger structure known as the abdominal wall, and then another bigger structure known as your core, which includes abdominal wall, muscles of the back, muscles of the glutes, and basically anything between the ball and socket joints of the hip and the ball and socket joints of the shoulder. So what this starts to tell us is that exercises like sit-ups, crunches, twists, and side bends aren't necessarily that effective for those muscles. What's more effective is planks, side planks, to be able to hold that torso rigid, and then we can start to build into things like Palov presses, deadlifts, presses, pulls, because we are slowly and gradually sort of stair-stepping our way up in rigidity of the torso. We learn it and we can maintain it with planks and side planks, and then we build around that with deadlifts, with squats, with presses, with pulls, with Palov presses, so on and so forth. But our core is there designed to hold the torso rigid. It's there to prevent movement of the spine, and therefore we need to, in a sense, train it in that way with the exercises. So hopefully that's given you a better idea of the real function of your abdominals and what they are there to do. And in turn, that should then help you select exercises to train it in that way. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris. Please do check out the ebook in the description. So just follow the link in the description. It'd be great to have you there. Alternatively, come to any of the social media above. Comment on this video if you've learned something from it. If you have a question about it, pop it in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Christopher Whole Training. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial.